I'm watching this show, and the main character, she's blind. She's blind, and she also just happens to be incredibly beautiful. And there was this one scene where she was meeting these new people. She was being introduced. They were sort of, greeting her, sort of taken aback by her beauty. And I had this thought. I was like, how would you, let's say I don't know, had a daughter or a sister, or someone in my family that I'd grown up with who was blind, and I was explaining to them that they were very beautiful. Like, how would I go about explaining that? It's such a normal part of our world, right? Beautiful people, less beautiful people, and it's such a weird concept to think about when you kind of detach yourself from it. Like, explaining it to someone who has no conception of it. It's like, well, basically, I mean, so if you were blind, you would understand that you have a face. You would understand you've got the eyes right there, which, oh, well, I guess the eyes would seem purposeless, right? Because but you would know that you smell through the nose. You'd know you eat through the mouth, right? You would see this face, and you would feel a certain degree of utility, right? But I mean, if you just touch your face, like, it's very hard to imagine that this thing right here that you're feeling, depending on its proportions, depending on its shape, people actually find themselves, like, there are varying degrees to which people find themselves attracted to a person depending on the face, and depending on the shape of the face, people can actually feel like a certain nervousness. Like, they can fall in love. They can, completely change the way they interact with someone based on the shape of that face, right? I mean, beauty is one of the. I mean, I think the world's making great progress in amending for the inequalities between genders, making up for the severe inequalities we've had baked into our system based on race. But inequalities based on levels of beauty are not that far behind. I mean, you get treated differently. Your errors are going to be overlooked a lot more easily if you're more beautiful. You're gonna get hired for more jobs, right? The chances of you getting a job are just higher. You're gonna date more people. You're gonna be liked by more people. You're probably gonna have more friends. I mean, this isn't a blanket rule by any means, but just on average, right? There's just advantages that come. Like you're gonna have texts responded more quickly. And I think I obviously don't know, but I'd imagine if I was in this situation, if I was blind and someone was explaining this to me, my first thought would be like, well, that seems so. Well, I guess the thought would be like, well, what did they do exactly to deserve that, right? How do you get higher levels? What do you. Is it based on how hard you work? Is it based on how good of a person you are? Is it like, how do you create that? And the answer is like, well, yeah, there are things you can do. You can exercise. You can help with sort of the shape. You can be more healthy, treat your skin better. There's even like Botox, which I think makes you look like really ugly, but that's to each their own tastes. But there's a big chunk that's just, you're just kind of born with it. Like, there's just like, I don't want to say objectively, because beauty, it's, you can never really say objectively, but I mean, come on, like, there are some faces that are just like, they're just more alluring than others, and it's just, you're just kind of born with it. And it's like, going back to that, imagining being told about this, it's like, well, that's so unfair. Like, and you guys just live with this? You guys are just okay with this? Like, even though it's not based on merit, it's not based on anything, it's kind of arbitrary, it's kind of random, you still kind of like, give preferential treatment and all these things, and it's like, yeah, we do. It's kind of just hardwired into us, and we kind of just don't think about it, and we kind of just roll with it, and it's just kind of how it is. It's just this baked in inequality that no one's ever really, like, we just, whether it's because we're too lazy to do anything about it, or it just makes no sense, or it's just this giant, or it's just, and no one really questions it. And to be fair, people were never enslaved because of lack of beauty. People were never, not allowed to enter the library without their husband's permission because of lack of beauty. So it doesn't have the same historical weight at all that genders or racism do. But there's still a brutal inequality there that's trippy to think about when you sort of look at it from an alien's perspective. Now, once we solve inequalities of race and gender, it only makes sense that the next progression for humanity is to solve the inequalities of beauty. So, just in my spare time, I've just been doing a bit of pondering as to how we might make steps in that direction. And I think the first place to start is just a sort of beauty tax. It wouldn't necessarily be a chunk of money you'd have to pay, but it'd sort of be something along the lines of, say you're a very beautiful man who has a rotating cast of 12 girlfriends. Maybe it'd be like a 15% of your girlfriends have to be donated to sort of a communal pool from which the common folk could try their luck, right? So if you've got 12, maybe you donate 2 of them, right? And before I get any of nonsense about, well, how would you quantify who's beautiful? How would you, there really are simple tests. For example, you could have women walk through a public park and just calculate the number of men whose sort of vision gets vacuumed into the woman, right? Or to find out which men are beautiful, you could stick a couple college girls in the corner of a coffee shop and then just have various men walk into the coffee shop. And when the man walks in, if the girls in the corner look at each other and start giggling, he's beautiful. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, we're obviously a long way off from this, but it's coming. So, yeah, I'm just brainstorming, tossing ideas around. Nothing concrete yet, nothing finalized, but yeah, beauty. What's interesting is I actually I was reading a little bit about the going back to the blind person describing beauty. Apparently, a blind person they are able to tell that they're beautiful because of the way that people interact with them, right? Because they're so attuned to the way people breathe, the way they project their voice, which again is tough because then it could be because they're blind and it's you don't interact with the blind person every day. I don't know. But it's just weird to try to imagine what it would be like to try to imagine beauty if you couldn't see, if you'd never been able to see, right? It's like for us trying to imagine a sixth dimension, something else that we have no ability to sort of take in, and yet varies wildly from person to person, and completely changes the way humans interact with you. I remember in junior high or something, one of those science classes in middle school or high school, I remember vaguely learning about this idea that a lot of attraction comes from smells and just the chemicals, and sometimes certain people just the chemicals somehow just line up or something, and because of them you can just feel attraction and have no idea that that's why you're feeling attraction, and yet it just, I guess that's sort of a parallel, but I don't know. I'm losing my train of thought here.